Put a finger down if you've ever lied on the internet about losing a finger in a horrific woodworking accident. Ta-da! So in case you are not aware, I am on a mission to make every single Harry Potter wand from the films from the correct woods. And in this video I'm going to be making the beautiful wand which belongs to Nymphadora Tonks. Whoa, 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 whoa! Back it up, Terry!
Would it revert, Terry? Would it revert? Oh, Lord! Lord, Jesus! Oh, Lord! Oh, Jesus! What you doing, Terry? Terry, what you doing?
So what is the wood? Well, we don't actually know, but as soon as I saw this wand, I immediately thought of snakewood because of these markings along the shaft. However, in the wand book, we are told that it actually resembled a jack-in-the-pulpit flower. But the jack-in-the-pulpit root is actually used to treat snake bites, so we can also rule that out. Now, I know they used London plane for some of the props, however, I don't think these flecks are big enough to match Tonks' wand. The photo we get in the wand book is also not much more help, however, it is quite a marbled shaft. So that left me with two options, which was lacewood or leopard wood. And of course, as Tonks was a metamorph maker, there was only one choice here, which had absolutely nothing to do with what I could find on eBay at the time. Look how nice that looks. Obviously you only get these flecks on the quarter sawn faces, but that's just gorgeous. Now in the wand book, Tonks actually holds the wand like that, but I think that feels much more natural. You can sort of point it a bit better. So, I wanted to see if I could steam bend this piece back over so I could drill down and core the wand. Now I did used to make wooden flowers, which were really thin and I could steam bend them to get all the petals right. However, this is actually quite thick and I don't think I'm going to be able to bend it well enough. So I've got a test piece in the steam box. So I've cut this roughly to the same size as that piece, just to see how well it would bend, but whilst it does bend, it does start to splinter, which is a bit annoying. So we can't steam bend it the way I wanted to. Now the book does say the wand was carved from two different woods, and that most likely explains why the grain is in a different orientation along the shaft compared to the handle. But making a wand out of two bits of wood doesn't sit right with me, so my plan is to actually drill the hole for the core first before I start carving all this end. And to do that, I need a really accurate tenon on the shaft end to then reverse and put back in the chuck. And this chuck now identifies as a 3-jaw because this is like 1 mil too big for it. But it'll be okay.
What are you doing?
Rescuing you, of course.
Now whenever you are drilling wood, especially if it's your first time with wood you're not experienced with, it's very important to start slow. You want that tip to be perfectly aligned before pushing it in, otherwise you risk a wonky hole, or worst case is that it snaps. If I find the wood is shaking around a little bit too much, I will just gently support it with my hand. This drill bit is relatively new and hasn't got many miles under its belt, so it is performing faultlessly. Now once you've got the drilling started and are happy with your progress, you can move up to a longer drill to reach where the smaller one couldn't. You can really start going to town now, making sure to fully withdraw occasionally, and if things are getting too hot, you've either got to slow things back down or apply some wax to help reduce the friction. So we now have the core drilled probably about that deep. Now, this does mean we're going to have a 3.5mm hole round about here. We're going to have to fill that in, but I think that will be quite invisible once it's finished. Now, this whole section is going to have to be basically carved by hand because I won't be able to hold it between centers at this end because it's just going to be too fragile. So I'm going to roughly turn this section down to the right diameter before I start carving. Now I'm just trying to eyeball this measurement because we don't have any reference to go from on the wand. Now this is my first time using leopard wood, and you can see from those shavings they're very short and fragmented, and this doesn't give me much hope for the carving. Even with the skew chisel it is really hard and resistant to cutting. Now in my previous video a lot of you did fall for the missing finger gag and a lot of you didn't, but even more of you didn't watch the end of the video.
How could I be so stupid?
For at least half of the population, the end is the best bit, so please don't just roll over and go to sleep. I would even treat you to some Easter eggs or bonus memes, and maybe even an ad. I said ad! So you can sort of see what I'm doing. I'm trying to just line that up with a silhouette just to get as close as I can before I start carving. And the shaft is basically triangular, so it's got 3 sides. So I'm just sort of, I'll spin it just to try and get the average there. And then obviously I'll plane it down by hand. I'm not sure if I've dropped this or not, but you can see it's... Whoa. That's why wood is better. Now in Fred and George's wands video, I knew I wouldn't be able to hide my finger in absolutely every shot, but I figured anyone who was watching on their phone might not see the details. But there was one scene where even in editing, I was so focused on the glue, I completely missed my not so missing finger. I'll never... never lose... Oh god. Whoops. I forgot that it... Obviously I can't just turn it that way, I've got to line it up that way, so... Sorry Darby. But I reckon I might have enough room if I just move it over this way a little bit. Okay, I just had lunch and I think we can get away with it. And I thought this shot would actually just show the medullary rays. So that's what these bits are, medullary rays. And that's why you can only see them in quarter sawn grain. So you can see there, it's basically those stripes, which is why here it completely disappears. And then here it comes back again when it's cut at that angle. Okay, I'm not going to go any thinner on that shaft until I actually start carving this. This end is going to be a little bit, this is the real tricky end, so I want a bit more meat here so I don't accidentally break it. Now if I do this end, nothing's quite straight as you'd expect if it's based off a flower, but I'm sort of going to do it that end sort of nice and straight, and then I can steam bend the shaft to match that curvature. Now you may have noticed a bit of a change, and that's because I've got rid of my workshop bench and put in this big monster of a lathe. So the plan was to fit my old red lathe to this bed, but for the time being this pullwood is just bolted onto this bed. The centre height is a little taller than I'm used to, but it's still usable. And the other negative is that now there's not enough clearance between the 2 beds, I have to use a nut and bolt to clamp the banjo, which isn't really end of the world. So this wadkin is massive, and for comparison this is the size of the chuck I normally use. Now I will make a wand on Big John one day, but not until I've done some modifications. At the moment it's running through the gearbox, which means at low RPM it's full, there's no ramp speed, so I'm worried about snapping a wand, and then at the highest speed it will do, the belt's slipping quite a bit. Obviously I've lost a lot of workspace and I haven't decided where to put this vise yet, so for the time being it's just clamped to this bed. Now I want to remove as much wasted material as I can before I start carving. So I'm orientating this wand so the medullary rays are most visible on top, which I think that looks the nicest, and we've got the flat part there, if that makes sense. And what I've done here is just mark out as best as I can the sort of outline, the sort of bird's eye view outline of the wand. That way I can cut it that way, and then I'll flip it over and do the same on that side. And that should get us quite close. Now remember, if you're going to do something dangerous, do it safely. And if you're too lazy to do it safely, blow it out. Okay, I've been an absolute idiot.
What an idiot.
So what I should have done is left the blank square to start with. That makes marking out much easier, both sides, and then put a thinner bandsaw blade on, and then it's much easier to keep it all nice and square. So there you can basically see the two profiles. So, you know, once you've cut that and that, you'd get a much closer shape than what I've done, which is, you know, it's getting there, but it's I've just made life harder for myself. And obviously I've only got one piece of wood. It would also help if I had a throat plate. I've had this bandsaw for about 10 years at least, and I've never, ever, ever made a new one. And today's not that day either. So I think the first bit I'm going to carve is this nice groove down here. Now, snakewood would have also looked very good, but as I mentioned at the start of the video, the jack-in-the-pulpit flower upon which this wand was based on, its roots were used by Native Americans to treat snake bites, and I thought this was conflicting. And my choice had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the only snakewood big enough available was outrageously expensive. Now, Salazar Slytherin made himself a snakewood wand, but given that Tonks' mother was in Slytherin, I didn't feel I could rule it out for Tonks, even though she was in Hufflepuff. Apparently Grigorovich sold a snakewood wand, and the one Dumbledore gave to Jacob Kowalski was also snakewood, albeit fake. Hopefully I'll get a chance to use it in the future. It also gets a little confusing between snakewood, lacewood and leopardwood. They're all very similar but are sometimes misnamed. Lacewood and leopardwood are from the same family, although lacewood can also be used to describe the Cordosaurine patterns that we saw on the London Plain, for example. And then snakewood is also called letterwood. And let's not even get into the Latin names. Whilst we are on the subject of naming things wrong, some people think this wand was designed after the pitcher plant, and whilst it does look similar to the jack-in-the-pulpit, they are in fact from different families. One of the cool things about the jack-in-the-pulpit is that it performs sequential hermaphroditism, which is the changing of sex, and I wondered if the original prop designers paired this flower with Tonks, who had the ability to change her physical appearance. Right, progress update, we're getting there slowly. It's very stop-start, and I'm sort of, you know, taking a bit off one side, then the other, then the top side, then checking again. I'm obviously not touching this bit down first because this is going to get, even though it's, you know, it's semi-thick, it's going to get so fragile, so I want that as strong as possible. Also, I don't know why I didn't do this years ago. Magnet on pencils. If you're a woodworker or your partner's a woodworker, go and buy them a pack of magnets because that's the best thing I've ever done. I don't know why I didn't do it years ago. Now, whenever I lose my pencil, I've just got to find something metal, and there it is. Now these chisels are super sharp, which is helping a lot. I've actually stopped using the hammer, and I'm just basically pushing and slicing by hand. It's a bit of, you know, trial and error. It's very slow, but it's giving quite a nice finish, and more importantly, it's control. I think this is the least likely way of snapping anything. Now it's safe to say Tonks was pretty cool, even if she did once participate in the duck face trend.
Be before the entire Wizard Court.
I don't understand.
And whilst that may be forgivable, giving her less than 3 minutes screen time in all of the films certainly isn't. What I didn't know was that she is related to the Black family, with her mother Andromeda being sisters with Narcissa and Bellatrix. This makes Tonks cousins with Draco, and I think first cousin once removed to Sirius? You'll have to correct me in the comments if that's wrong.
Don't call me Nymphadora.
Or the entire Wizard Court.
I don't understand.
Right, I finished carving this section now, so I won't touch this again until sanding. There's the ridge in the middle. There's also a slight little ridge there, which is what you can see there. Now I've sanded the edges back, so this top outer contour, that's the line I am working to and keeping. And if we sort of line it up there, I'm pretty happy with how well that's going. You know, we're not perfect, but really happy with that. And then down the middle, we've got that little gap there working quite well too, which I'm happy with. The side view is also almost there, and if we put it down to that angle, I'm pretty happy with sort of how that's looking. So the reason I've done this top side first is so that after I can get the belt sander onto this underside edge to get those really thin petals, because it's going to be so fragile. Now, apologies, I didn't get any videos done over Christmas, but I thought I'd use this first video of the year to go through some channel goals. So obviously I want to make all the wands, but I'm going to save Harry, Ron and Hermione's for the last 3 videos on this channel. And in an ideal world, I'll get them made before the HBO series comes out. Okay, that's very optimistic until I can make videos full time. But if you work at either HBO, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Orlando, or even for the Noble Collection, please get in touch, as I'd love to talk about some potential options for the future. Now for this next bit, I've got to try and basically dig this bit out of the flower. I don't know if we'll get it quite that deep, but I should have fairly good access to get in there. I've just got to be super careful of these petals now. Okay, that's about as far as I can carve down into that little that valley there. You can see the hole we drilled at the very start of making this wand. Now you're going to have to trust me, the core is in fact inside. Now I've turned these 2 little pegs to now blank up those holes. Now this top hole has a really nice fit both sides, but you can still push it by hand quite easily, so I'm going to use a bit more glue on that as well. And it's also important to get the grain to line up perfectly, so hopefully it's invisible. Okay, we've had our first breakage. Funny enough, this wasn't the bit I thought was going to break. I thought I was going to snap the the petals. It's this little sort of hook on the end here, so yeah, let's try and glue that back on. I literally just sharpened that tool as well. Fortunately, I think this is going to glue back quite nicely because I can clamp it lovely and square on there. Okay, it's glued back on, and I think that's the end of carving. I don't want to risk any more, so I'm going to move, unfortunately, to the angry air Dremel. Whoa.
My husband, the Joker. By the way, wait till you hear the news. Remus and I...
All right, we'll have time for a cozy catch-up later.
Now there's no point sanding this any further until I've steam bent this shaft. So the kettle's on and the steam box is steaming. Okay, that worked perfectly. It's kind of hard to show, but we have got a very slight bend now on this shaft. Now, I'm not going to make the same mistake as Fred's wand, which is where I didn't test the finish. This was the offcut from this piece of wood, which I made into a tool for my new lathe. This is just a clear wax finish. This is Danish oil. And you can see just how much that Danish oil has absolutely killed the colour of that beautiful, beautiful rosewood. But with this leopard wood, we are okay. We've got sanding seal at this end. This is clear wood. This is clear wax. And this is Danish oil. And I think we're going to go with Danish oil because that really pops against that blue background. Ah, joking. Oh, that is so gorgeous.
Don't call me Nymphadora.
So that concludes the making of Nymphadora the Explorer's Wand. I hope you have enjoyed this, and oh my god, it's 24 minutes long. I am so sorry. Carving this was quite a challenge, so I'm really happy with how close I got it, but please let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. As always, a massive thank you to my wonderful patrons whose support is greatly appreciated.